Hi, I'm RAFEEQ ELLIAS, a filmmaker who believes that we all need to know the nuts and bolts of filmmaking all the time, especially today in the age of technology, a time of huge change where so much more is possible than ever. We need a platform like Pixel Village which keeps us updated, tuned into new developments, but somewhere at the end of the day, the most important thing for us, I think, is the magic of cinema. It's the magic of cinema that makes us work and slog for days, for hours, through the most difficult conditions. We can be in the desert at 48 degrees temperature and shoot without complaining, because end of the day we're chasing a dream. And this series is exploring that dream, and what better way to do that than to do it with someone like Rashid Irani. Now, Rashid Irani has been a well-kept secret for most of the world, certainly for the 563,000 subscribers of Pixel Village as of now. Rashid Irani is a one-man institution. He's going to be embarrassed by what I say about him, but it's true. His friends, his admirers, we will all testify to that. Rashid Irani, as his family name suggests, is a member of the Irani community in Bombay. The Irani community is interesting because they came to India a little over a century ago for economic reasons. Many of them are Zoroastrians, like the Parsis, who came many centuries earlier because of religious persecution. And of course, there are Iranis who are Muslims. Iranis invariably in Bombay set up restaurants and bakeries. And Rashid Irani was the owner of one such restaurant in Bombay, in the heart of the city, South Bombay, Dhobi Talao, a restaurant called Cafe Brebon. He was there day in and day out from 5:30 in the morning till late at night, but his heart beat for cinema. Whenever he got time, he was away watching movies, writing about movies, and the friends who congregated at Brebon were either filmmakers, cinematographers, other film historians, people who traveled from all over the world would visit Bombay, would stop by. So even as Rashid ran the cafe, even though Rashid worked 12 to 14 hours a day at the cafe, that was his part-time job. He wrote reviews for newspapers in Bombay, like the Hindustan Times. He was, and he still is, a part of the jury of the Mumbai International, what do you call it? MAMI is what? Mumbai Academy of
Moving Images.
So Rashid is part of the jury, the international jury.
And well, correction here.
Yeah.
I'm on the selection panel.
Okay.
Of the festival.
Rashid is on the selection panel of a major Indian film festival like the Mumbai Academy of Moving Images, MAMI, what is popularly known as. And he has this job of running through hundreds of films each year to kind of distill them down into a smaller number of highly distinguished, eclectic, groundbreaking films. So Rashid, you were this young kid, I presume, in a Zoroastrian family. When you first saw, when you saw your first momentous film that changed everything for you, and which was that film? And tell me all about that.
RAFEEQ, first of all, thank you for that gracious introduction. Well, and I would like to say that I basically think of myself as a film buff, as a film reviewer, and as someone who has had a lifelong passion for cinema, as an ordinary lay person,
Fantastic.
as just a viewer, basically. As for my beginnings, well, it's a very, very long story. And I do not know, I will try my best to summarize it.
It's a naughty story, right?
I wish it were, but it isn't. In a way, it is. But it includes, among the elements, it includes my early life as a school-going kid. It includes some of my teachers at the St. Xavier School. It includes cricket. I will come to that later. And, well, most importantly, most crucially, it includes Marilyn Monroe. So, well, as a, well, when I was in the 11th standard, I think, if memory serves me right, our class one day was interrupted by the sports instructor who came in and said, made an announcement saying that our school had won the semi-finals of the Harris Shield, and we had gone into the finals after a very, very long period of many years. And he told all the students that we must be at the cricket ground on Sunday to see the final and to cheer our team. Well, I took his instructions seriously. I did go to the finals along with a couple of friends, my classmates actually. And we cheered and we won. Well, at the same time, me and my two friends were taking tuition from a teacher whose name I can't forget anyway. His name was Thomas. He was from Madras, great person. And we used to call him, in fact, the class before us used to call him Vada.
Vada as
like in Medu Vada.
Medu Vada, huh?
Yeah,
Not
like
a
in
banana
Medu
vada.
Vada. We used to just call him Vada.
Okay.
Because that was the time, the period when the Udupi restaurants had just made inroads into Bombay. So I suppose that's how this connection. He was from Madras, from that area, and so he was called Vada, and we were taking tuitions from him. So when we went to this match, we bunked the tuition without even thinking about it. And when we went the next day for our tuitions, we found, and when we rang the bell, we found him. He opened the door and he was standing there, and we knew from his demeanor that there was something wrong, very wrong. And he held a cane in his right hand to make matters worse. So the first thing he did was asked us, where were you on Sunday? So we kind of jumped and we said, sir, we went to the match and we won. You know, as if we didn't know. He said, that's okay, but did you tell me you are not coming and that you are going to the match? And we thought, well, what the hell is all this about? Anyway, to cut a long story short, he actually caned all three of us and said this should never happen again. Being young, we came out that day, and of course the physical hurt had kind of passed by, the caning. But what stayed with us, some kind of psychological this thing, is that what kind of a man is this? Our own school, we won, you know, and is this the way to treat us? So we planned revenge. And we decided 2 days later, we will not go again to his tuition. Each of us will come up with a different excuse to get by. Now, all this was fine, but the problem was, what do we do with the 2 hours? We were young, we were children. What do we do with the 2 hours, you know, in which we are supposed to be at tuition? And my parents, my mother especially, would watch me go down, would watch me, we had a balcony, she could watch me go towards Metro Cinema and walk towards his home. So we had a dilemma. We decided at the spur of the moment, that we will go to a film. That's the best way to spend the time. And so the two of us, one of them incidentally chickened out, one of the boys. The two of us decided, great idea, we'll go see a film. So, and he stays also very close to Liberty Cinema. And in those days, I was watching mainly Hindi films, mainly. My mother would take me or whatever. And the only English films I remember watching were from school. They were either historical epics or biblical epics. You know, otherwise I had no this thing about American cinema or Hollywood cinema. And in those days, like I said, Liberty would show Indian films only, Bollywood. So we rushed there, bought the tickets and went in, thinking we are seeing an Indian film. And well, it was semi-crowded. It was quite crowded actually. There must have been 600-700 people, other people. And the moment the film started, both Yatin Vora, that was my classmate, and me let out a yelp because the logo that came on was of 20th Century Fox, and we knew we had made a big mistake, that we were about to see an American film, which we didn't want to. We thought we were seeing an Indian film. So that film began, the logo was over, the film began, and within the next few minutes, few seconds I would say, I was completely mesmerized. There was this voluptuous, sensuous woman dressed in a tight hugging black dress, walking away from the camera in the first scene. I couldn't even see her face. And of course I was at an impressionable age and I was completely awestruck just by that figure of that woman walking away. And the next shot was of her, was taken from the front, and I saw her face and I was just floored. And what happened next is very strange. Throughout the film, I became oblivious of the 600 odd people at the Liberty that day, at that show. I became oblivious of my then best friend, Yatin, who was sitting, Jatin Vora, who was sitting in the seat next to me. And I was involved in nothing but that film. You talked about the magic of the cinema. Well, for the first time in my life, I realized how magical cinema could be. And I thought actually that, and I didn't even at that point probably, though her name came, Monroe walked for me, she talked to me, she fought for me, she killed for me, and she died for me.
Brilliant.
You know, I just couldn't.
Totally brilliant.
I just couldn't. At that screening, I became a lifelong passionate devotee of cinema. And it's all because of Monroe. I became a lifelong, starstruck. I still am. And you know, I forgot that there was something like Indian cinema, or there were those biblical epics. And I really have to thank Thomas, the Giles Shield, the Irish Shield rather, the Harris Shield, and this mix-up.
And the caning.
And the caning. Well, and I became a film buff. And I have always been passionate about cinema. So in a way, and if I can extend this, you know, there's a coda to this. I passed out of SSC, and on one occasion, I became a regular film goer. I used to go to all the 6 or 7 cinemas in South Bombay at that time and watch practically every film that was released every week. And there was this day when in the afternoon, I was coming out of the New Empire cinema. I'd watched a film called Marines Let's Go. I still remember the title. And it was a war comedy, and with no star cast, nothing, you know. And as I was coming out, I saw, and this I had already passed out of this thing, I saw Mr. Thomas with his family walking in. And I was completely mortified, you know. But he was very, very nice, ordinary. He asked me, "You've seen the film, how is it? We are just going to see it." So very hesitantly I told him it's a war comedy, etc., etc. And we parted ways. Some 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, the whole scenario was reversed. I was going into the New Empire cinema to see a film called Leopard by Visconti. He was coming out. And this time he tells me, "You're going to see a very good film." So I kind of said, I kind of said, somehow, you know, it just came on the spur of the moment. I said, "But I know." You know, when he said, "You're going to see a good film," I said, "I know." I said, "I know." He was flummoxed for a second. He said, "But you're just going in." I said, "Yes, but yes, sir, that I saw the film yesterday and have come again."
Oh, this was the second time you saw the film.
That, yeah. And there was, in those days, if I didn't see a film a second time, I mean, people would know, I would know that it was not worth seeing at all. That was my this thing. So, and you know, when I told him this, a faint flicker of a smile flashed across his face. Something I've never seen in class or during my days at tuition. And for the first time in my life, I got a sort of validation from him by that smile, that I am on the right path. You know, it just occurred to me that probably I'm on the right path. And well, I never ever saw the man again after that evening.
But that's quite a story, because it means that you two, who were so far apart in age, and he was a teacher and you were a student, and he was this guy with the cane and you were at the receiving end of it.
I'm coming to this.
And you made a bond in the cinema hall, across the aisle in the darkness,
and
almost.
It validated my passion, my fledgling passion at that time. And well, now I would like to talk something about, you know, in a way, Thomas and a few of the other teachers in my school were indirectly, you know, responsible, I think, for my passion.
But
in a way, very indirect way.
But I'm waiting to ask you about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, and Monroe, of course, was divine, was absolutely divine.
So I'm trying
I mean, later, of course, one read and one knew, one saw all her films. She has been called the dumb blonde, which I think is a misnomer if ever there was one.
Really? Okay.
Because I found her I still find her performances quite extraordinary. She has worked in all genres of cinema, and the other thing, you know, for years, not years, for decades afterwards, even when DVD came into the picture, and I refuse to see, the title of the film, I'm sorry, I forgot. The title of the film was Niagara.
Niagara.
And for decades afterwards,
we have a poster somewhere, and we'll
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you know, for decades afterwards, I never wanted to see Niagara again. Even when my friends had copies of the film, I didn't want to, because I was scared that neither the film nor Monroe would live up to my expectations. But I saw it finally, and both the film and she live up to expectations. There's no question about that. And so, to come back to some of my teachers, and to Mr. Thomas especially, I think in an indirect way they shaped my destiny. Absolutely, I'm convinced that in an indirect way they shaped my destiny, along with Monroe, of course. And you know, I feel I mean, it'll get too long, but I feel that some of these, as growing up, I'm guilty of feeling that I've gone ahead, from these my earliest teachers. And I think that's a big, big mistake. Because they might have, we feel they've stuck on to that same level. I mean, I know a teacher who taught me, a lady teacher who taught me in the first standard. And sometimes I feel that why do I feel that she is, no longer valuable, or no longer, that I have no concern with her, that I have moved on. I think I'm really guilty of that, because it was these people, especially in school, not so much in college, which I rarely attended actually. So, well, basically that's it.
Yeah.
And well, I became a film buff.
So I'm trying to imagine you going to this cinema hall.
Yeah.
You came down from home and you were a young boy with acne and
Well, I didn't have acne.
pimples.
I was a young boy.
Oh,
No, I didn't have acne. I'm sure of that. I was impressionable. All that granted. But
and these were not adults only movies, huh? Were they?
no, I don't know. I don't remember.
You
that.
managed to
But we were
sneak
there
through
inside.
And this was
And we were, I started seeing adult movies at a very young age, comparatively.
and this was your karmic moment that kind of transformed
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
And there was no looking back.
Absolutely. And well, very rarely since, if ever, have I so completely identified with a character or an actress.
Yeah. But Rashid, this is what I really like about you. I have to tell you this up front. What I really like is the fact that you have not become so snobbish and so, how do you say, I'm not going to see Hollywood, and now I'm into French and Japanese cinema.
No, but that was a process of evolution.
But you got a big spectrum of cinema.
Yeah.
And so it has to be good cinema, but at the bottom line it has to have quality storytelling, quality entertainment, quality performance.
Of course.
And it can come from Hollywood, and Hollywood is respectable for you.
Oh yeah.
And then
Without
you
doubt.
are looking at the very exotic, very eclectic, very experimental. I know for a fact that you're the guy who goes and watches movies that last 10 hours and 12 hours, and you're the last man standing or sitting in the cinema hall. Everybody's left the place and you're still there.
Yeah.
So it's quite a span, and I really appreciate that, and I think that's fantastic. That's the cinema buff at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
no filters. I'm going to see and give it a good shot, and
But how one evolves, I think, and this is the advice I give everybody who's trying to get interested in cinema. The best way to learn cinema is to see as many films as possible, from as many countries as possible, from as many eras as possible. See the good, see the bad, see the ugly. That's the way I learned, and that's the way I think the right way to go about it.
So when you say the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think of Clint Eastwood, who is another hero of yours.
Yes.
But maybe we should keep that for another day.
Yeah.
And I think we focus on Marilyn Monroe for now. Guys, this man out here, he has 1,000 more stories. 1,000 more entertaining stories that will impact our way of thinking, our way of seeing cinema, our sensibilities. He can talk about actors, about directors, cinematographers. Just hang in there, stay tuned. In the next episode, we're going to talk a lot more about Marilyn Monroe first. Rashid Irani, I'm RAFEEQ ELLIAS. Bye for now.